Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to get started. So welcome to the Inclusive Edge. It's a good idea. Idea being inclusive, diverse, equitable, and ally. So that is the theme of our presentation. And first I'm going to start with a land acknowledgement today, and then we'll move forward with our program. So we acknowledge that the land upon which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Adirondack, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people. We are the beneficiaries of ancient agreements, such as the dish with one spoon, between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, who agreed to share the abundance of the land through peace, friendship, and mutual respect. The two-row wampum, by which the Haudenosaunee welcomed the settlers and agreed to share the land in mutual respect, and the Treaty of Niagara, considered a fundamental document by First Nations in all future relations and treaties with the British. We recognize that we have a responsibility to be stewards of the land in cooperation and collaboration with the Indigenous peoples, not only for one generation, but for all generations to come. We understand that we have an obligation to learn the lessons of our history, educate ourselves about the experiences of the Indigenous people, and seek opportunity to heal the wounds that will result in reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people live and work in Fort Erie. We stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. We have the good fortune to live in a land of such abundance, diversity, and beauty. Let us be vigilant in protecting Turtle Island. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Jennifer A.D., and I am the co-chair of the Fort Erie Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Coalition. And I have with me today, Ashley Pitawandaquat. I hope I said that right, Ashley. And she is the co-chair of the committee as well. So Ashley, welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Yep. And then we have Jeff A.D. Martin here as our guest speaker. So I want to give you a little bit of background here. The Fort Erie EDI Coalition restarted in 2020 after the death of George Floyd. We are a group of volunteers from across Fort Erie, representing Fort Erie across all sectors here. The coalition's mission is to assist mayor and council by providing advice, practices, and initiatives on anti-racism, anti-discrimination, and anti-prejudice. In 2023, the coalition put on a very successful event called the Mayor's Forum. This year, the coalition decided that based on feedback from our community, this time around, we would put focus on our small and medium-sized businesses. The town's vision is a community for everyone. And what a better way than to welcome everyone to our community or your community by ensuring businesses are set up for success and are able to welcome all who want to access their services. With us today, we have Jeff A.D. Martin. Jeff spoke at our Mayor's Forum 2 years ago, and he was so engaging and popular with the participants and us that we wanted to bring him back again. So Jeff is a powerful voice in corporate leadership, known for his dynamic blend of real-world experience, emotional intelligence, and inclusive thinking. With over 20 years of service as a police officer and investigator, Jeff brings a grounded and deeply human approach to leadership, communication, and organizational culture. As a speaker and strategist, Jeff has worked with Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, police services, and educational institutions across North America, helping leaders at all levels build environments of empathy, accountability, and trust. His message resonates because it's lived, not just learned. Jeff's engaging and relatable style makes complex topics like diversity, equity, and inclusion, and emotional intelligence accessible and actionable for teams and executives alike. Whether on stage or in a boardroom, Jeff inspires leaders to show up with purpose, connect with their teams authentically, and drive real impact. I turn it over to Jeff. Welcome.
Oh man, thank you so much. Thank you for all those kind words. It is so appreciated. I am so glad to be here to speak to everybody here virtually, of course. As you heard in my bio, and I'm so, flattered with everything that was read there, but as you heard in my bio, I have worked as a police officer for 20 plus years. And before I get started, I'm just going to share my screen here. So if you bear with me, there's a presentation that I want to share with you that will help to really emphasize some of the points I'm going to share with you today. So if you just bear with me, I'll pull that up, get that going. All right, can you just let me know if that looks okay on your end?
Jeff, I can see it says you're started sharing, but it's not showing anything.
Okay.
It's just a black screen. There we go.
Yeah,
Now
we're up
good.
and running. Okay, fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you. As I said, I've worked as a police officer for just over 20 years. There was a time that I was dealing with a call. So what happened was there was a shop owner who had owned a shop, and sometime during the night, someone came along, maybe teens, we don't know, but they came along with spray paint and wrote on the side of the wall of this building. They wrote a term that was extremely derogatory to a certain group of people. The owner of the shop saw it. He got frustrated. He got upset because here he has to clean this paint off. He went inside, but he was like, I'll deal with it later. The morning went on, and kids started to walk down the sidewalk along with their parents taking them to school. And one of the parents saw that derogatory term, a term that spoke directly to her. And she went into the store and she said, "What's going on at the side of your shop?" And the store owner was like, "Yeah, these kids or someone came along at night and wrote it. I got to clean it. I'll get to it eventually." And she's like, "No, no, no, you can't get to eventually. You have to get to it now." You have kids that are walking by seeing that derogatory term, that term that speaks directly to some of these kids who are walking by your shop. The store owner got upset. It's like, "Listen, I told you I'll clean it when I can." And he got frustrated, and an argument happened between that parent and that shop owner, to the point where the shop owner got so frustrated that he picked up the phone and called the police to have that parent removed. I'm the one who showed up to that call. I get to the call and I can see the derogatory term written on the side of the wall. I go inside the shop and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and I hear the store owner talk about, "Yeah, it's there," and I'm not happy it's there, of course, because I got to pay to have it clean, but you know what? I'll deal with it later. I'm busy, and I'm trying to explain to him that yes, there are children, there are people who are walking by who are seeing this term written on the side of your wall. No, you didn't cause it. You are not responsible for causing it, but you're responsible for getting rid of it. I share that with you because, my friends, it's important for us to understand, as residents in Ontario, for you residents in the Fort Erie area, we come across situations that are discriminatory. We come across racism. We come across microaggressions. We come across people being picked on. We're not the one that caused it, but I believe collectively, as residents of this province, residents of this country, I think collectively it's our job to try and get rid of it. It's our job to address it. It's our job to do what we can to ensure that everybody is giving the same fair treatment that we want for ourselves and for our own family. See, some of us get caught up in a situation where we just kind of go with the status quo. We just go along with what's taking place. There's something called cognitive enrichment. When an individual or organization rely heavily on established knowledge, practices, and experiences, making it challenging to adapt to new information or changes in the environment. Otherwise, it's a bias that's rooted in comfort, familiarity, and reluctance to deviate from established norms. There's things that you learn growing up that you do. You don't do them because they're right or wrong. You just do them because you were taught to do them. Those things that you learned came from your parents. The things that your parents did came from grandparents, came from great-grandparents. And we continue to do certain things in our lives and have certain rituals, but we do these things not sometimes because they make sense, but we do them because we've just been doing them our entire life. Let me share a story with you. There was a young girl that was working on Christmas dinner with her mother. And as the mother was about to put the turkey in the oven, the mom took a knife and she cut off the wings of the turkey and she put the turkey in the oven. And the little daughter was like, "Wow, Mom, why did you do that?" She's like, "You know what? I don't know why I did that. I got that from my mom." So the little girl was curious. So grandma came over to eat that dinner when it was ready. And when she came over, the little girl said, Grandma, I just helped mom making Christmas dinner. But when we put the turkey in the oven, mom cut off the wings off the turkey. I asked her why she did it. And she said, I don't know. I learned it from my mom. So here I am asking you, Grandma, were you doing the same thing? Why did you cut off the wings of the turkey when you put it in the oven? And the grandma said, you know what? I'll be honest. I don't know why I did that. I did it because it was taught to me by my mother. So the little girl was super curious. So now she picks up the phone and she makes a phone call to the old age home where her great grandmother is living. She says, great grandma, we just made Christmas dinner. But listen, when it was going in the oven, my mom cut off the wings of the turkey. I asked her why. She said it was taught by her mother. I asked grandma why she did. She said, I don't know. It was taught by you. So great grandma, you got to tell me, why did you cut off the wings of the turkey before it went into the oven? And great grandma looked at where great grandma was talking to the granddaughter, and she said, I did it because my oven was too small back then. So here you have generation upon generation upon generation who continues to cut the wings off a turkey, not because it tastes better, but because great grandma couldn't put it in the oven with the wings on because her oven was too small back then. It's a ritual that got passed down in that family. See, some of us have rituals that are passed down in our family. And some of these rituals that have been passed down to our family can come across as being something that could be offensive to others. That man, that shop owner who decided that he was going to take his time to erase that derogatory term, for him, it wasn't a big deal. And maybe it wasn't a big deal because it didn't affect him. Maybe because it was something that maybe his family did or his great-grandparents did. Maybe they just, not a big deal. But there were people who were still being affected. There were people who are still being affected by the word that was on the side of that shop. But because some of us just go along with the flow, we don't realize that when somebody else is being hurt, we don't really listen to that. When someone else is feeling like they're being degraded, we go about our way. It's important for us to recognize that even with the cognitive enrichment, it's important for us to recognize that we have a duty to stand up and sometimes do things differently, which means we stand up and we erase that word off the side of the store. It means that we stand up against injustice, even if our parents didn't do that. It means that we stand up against racism, even if our parents or grandparents came from a time when racism existed. We have to do things differently and not continue to put that turkey in the oven with the wings cut off. See, if we decide to ignore diversity and inclusion, there are a lot of people who can be affected. See, oftentimes when we think of the term diversity, we think of the term inclusion, we oftentimes go to the thought of skin color. We go to the thought of sexual orientation. But we have to recognize that diversity and inclusion is more than just sexual orientation, it's more than just skin color. It has to do with other things as well. It's belt extenders on airplanes. It's wheelchair accessibility. It's different size beds in hospitals. When we think about diversity and inclusion, we're talking about subtitles on TVs and captions. We're talking about flexible work arrangements. We're talking about having change tables in men's washrooms. My oldest son is 16, and around the time that he was very young, I remember going to malls, having my son, my wife wasn't there, and I had to change his diaper, and I would go in men's change rooms or in men's washrooms, and oftentimes there wouldn't be a change table. This is something that I had to fight with. This is something that many men have had to fight with. And then you got to get creative on how you're changing this diaper. Sometimes you got to put the toilet seat down. And the last thing I want to do is put my son on a public seat toilet. But at the end of the day, you're trying to get creative on how you can change a child's diaper. This is diversity and inclusion. Diversity and inclusion also includes being open to ideas. You know, I had a friend of mine some time ago who on Facebook, this is going back maybe a couple years ago, on Facebook, he put up a post and he's like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited. See, this friend was in a wheelchair. And what he was excited about was that an emoji was created of somebody in a wheelchair. He finally felt like he was seen by this social media webpage. something that might feel like it's so small, but it shows that there are people who walk different walks of life, and oftentimes they don't feel like they're seen. He celebrated that moment because at that moment, something as small, as minuscule as an icon, somebody in a wheelchair, represented who he was. And he didn't just have to go with the status quo. We need to recognize that diversity inclusion is more than just race, skin color, sexual orientation. It has to do with so much more, including being open to the ideas of individuals who come from different walks of life. See, if we go back to the situation that I talked about at that store where the degrading word was written on the side of the store, imagine if that store had employees. How would that employee feel seeing that word? What if that word spoke specifically to that employee? You know, there are people out there who are working at jobs and they can't stand the job they work at. And I got to tell you, those employees that are disengaged, and they could be disengaged because they're not feeling included. They're not feeling welcome. They don't feel like their ideas, they feel like they're just there just to fill a spot. They don't feel like their ideas truly matter in the workplace that they're in. But those employees are costing you as business owners. They say unhappy workers cost North America businesses $350 billion annual in lost productivity. Those employees, they say there's a 30% rate of higher absenteeism, meaning they're going to call in sick a lot more because they don't feel like they're included. Sorry, pardon me here. This just froze on me. Give me a quick second. I apologize. My presentation just froze on me, but we're going to keep going nonetheless. When it comes to those who feel like they're not engaged, and I'm just going to stop sharing if that's okay, and I'm just going to talk because I think that will make it easier. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm going to keep speaking. We're having some technical difficulties, but you know what? We adapt and we overcome. When it comes to employees that are disengaged, some of them, they call themselves quiet quitters. You may have heard that term. A quiet quitter is an employee who just does enough to not get in trouble, but they do less to not be productive. That employee is not likely going to get fired because they're doing at least enough to keep their paycheck coming in, but they're no longer engaged. And when they're no longer engaged, they're not giving the job what they really could give. And so you as the employer, for those business owners that are out there, when we allow our employees to feel like they're not engaged, it allows them to feel like they're not connected. And then sometimes we lose them. We don't lose them as an employee, they stick around, but we lose them as somebody who can be engaged. We lose them as someone who could give us really great ideas to enhance our business. We lose that individual from becoming the best person that they can be. We lose out on being able to help to develop them into the leader that they can be, just because of our lack of wanting to be inclusive. Being inclusive, recognize that we have to see and value people for who they are, regardless of the walk that they walk down, regardless of the background they may have, regardless of the accent they may have, the religion they may have. It's important for us to recognize that all of us come with value. And when we bring that value, we can make such a huge impact in this world. Why is inclusion good for business? It's good for business because when you allow people to come in your store and feel like they're welcome, they're going to come back. Let me ask you this question. Think about the last time you truly felt welcome in a business. What did they do differently than every other store? I'm not just talking about going into the store and buying something and everything was pretty neutral. I'm talking about going into the store and the person said, "Hey, good morning. How you doing today? How's your day going? Hey, we got something on sale. I think this would look good on you." When the person engaged you, how did that make you feel? It made you feel that you mattered. It made you feel seen. It made you feel important. When we are able to interact with stores, with business owners in that fashion, it makes us feel good. What are the chances that you're actually going to come back? There's probably a high chance that you're going to come back. And so again, when we allow ourselves to be inclusive as store owners, as residents, as people within your town or where you live, when we allow ourselves to be inclusive, we give other people an opportunity to be seen. It generates business. It generates good relationships by simply allowing ourselves to be inclusive. My friends, I'm going to try to share my screen again, and I hope this time there is no glitches. And again, it just allows me to show and emphasize some of the things that we're speaking about. So if you just bear with me again. All right. I think if someone could just come off of mute and let me know if you can see it on your end.
Yes, we can see.
Fabulous. Okay. Fantastic. So let's carry on. Why else is inclusion good for business? It's good for business because it allows for a community to feel like they're reflected. When the customer comes from different walks of life, if your business reflects that, they feel welcome. If they walk in the store and they see different people of different backgrounds or races, if they walk in your store and they see that your store has items in there for different walks of life, if they walk in their store and you can show them how welcome they are, they're going to feel welcome. Why else does inclusion matter for businesses? Well, it brings loyalty and trust. Customers are more likely to return when they feel seen, as we spoke about earlier. And also, word of mouth gets around. If someone from a certain culture or background comes into your store and they feel like they matter, they're going to tell everybody else. And all of a sudden, your store is the place to go to. Oh, you got to go to that store over there. They sell the best potatoes, and man, they are so nice over there. Chances are some of those people they speak to are going to come to your store. And it really helps to generate business. In a place like Niagara region, that's the best free marketing that you can ever get. When you allow yourself to be inclusive, when you allow the things in your store to be inclusive, people want to come in, people want to shop, and they'll spread word of mouth on how great of a place your business is. Why is it important for us to be inclusive? Let me just give you a few examples. There's a gentleman by the name of Richard Montanez. Richard Montanez was somebody that they would say had a number of asterisks against him. Richard Montanez migrated from Mexico to the United States. Some would say that's an asterisk against him. He spent time in jail, asterisks against him. He didn't finish school. That's 3 asterisks against him. Some people would have marked him off. He actually ended up getting a job as a janitor at the PepsiCo Frito-Lay company. PepsiCo is Pepsi and Frito-Lay, the chip company. He got a job working at the chip side of the company, the Frito-Lay side of the company, as a sweeper, cleaning toilets, as a janitor. And while he was there, every once in a while, they would give them free chips. And so he would take these free chips, these Cheetos, and he would bring them home. And because of his Mexican background, he decided that he was going to add a little bit of spice to these things. So he would go home and add some spices to the chips. He'd mix it around, he'd eat it, and he'd be like, man, this is really good. And so he would share this with his family, and as they were eating it, and his friends as well, as they're eating it, they're like, wow, this is really good. You should bring this back to your business and let them know about it. He's like, man, I'm just a janitor. I'm just a cleaner. I'm someone who dropped out of school. I'm someone who went to jail. They're not going to listen to me. But someone convinced him, you know what? You never know where this can go. And so he went back to work one day and tried to make an arrangement to see the CEO. After a lot of obstacles, he finally got that meeting. He sat down with the CEO and he shared the idea of taking regular Cheeto chips and adding spices to it. The CEO said, you know what? That's not a bad idea. He gave it a taste and said, you know what? This tastes pretty good. Let's give it a try and see what happens. Today, with Frito-Lay, the Flaming Hot brand has become the biggest selling brand for that business because Richard Montanez brought his idea, a janitor, a person who dropped out of school, a person who migrated to the United States, a person who went to jail. That individual brought his idea to the company, and the company today makes millions, if not billions of dollars because of Richard Montanez's idea. When we're talking about being inclusive, we're also talking about being inclusive about people and to the ideas that they bring to the table. Saying, see, this is a situation as well where we talk about how inclusivity works so well. There was a woman one day who had a certified check and she wanted to bring it to the bank and cash it. She called the bank and she said, listen, I have a check. I want you to cash it. It's only $200, but I realize that it's 4 o'clock now and I want to know, what time do you close? The bank says 5 o'clock. She says, I live just over an hour away from your bank, but I really want to get this cash tonight. Now, what would a really good bank do? A really good bank would say, you know what, ma'am, I know you're about a little over an hour away. We'll stay open. We close at 5, but we'll stay open for you. That's what a really good bank would do. But what would an extremely good bank do? See, on this day, that extremely good bank said, ma'am, this is what we're going to do. I realize where you live, and you don't live too far from where I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take $200 from the bank. I'm going to drive to your house. I'm going to take that certified check from you, and I'm going to give you the $200. The check is certified. I know the money is there. I'm going to give you the $200. I'll take that check from you, and when I go back to work the next day, I'll put that check in the bank. The woman was ecstatic that this bank would go above and beyond to allow her to do the business that she was trying to do. See, the bank didn't know who she was, but they did this because they recognized that being inclusive to all the members of the public that they could be, that it really could make things easier for them. Ultimately, they learned that this woman had just moved to the city and she had millions of dollars in the bank, but at a different bank. But after the service that they gave her, she decided to move all her money to that bank. That's inclusion. Many of us know this logo, the Aflac logo, the Aflac sound. Aflac, we've heard it many times on TV. See, when this company came around, they said, we need to find some type of logo, a way to sell our business. So they went to a marketing firm and they said, we have this business called the American Family Life Assurance Company. We're trying to find a way to market it. And as this group sat together, the CEO was there, the managers was there, and there was people that were there as well that were summer students. Some that people would say were lesser of importance in the room. But they all sat together collectively trying to think of a way to put this business in motion, trying to advertise this business. They broke for lunch, and while they broke for lunch, one of those summer students was standing in line getting food, and they were playing with the name African Family Life Assurance Company, and they took the letters, and they made the acronym AFLAC. And as they're standing in line, they're playing with AFLAC, and they're like, it sounds like a duck, AFLAC. And as soon as they came back together after lunch, that employee looked at everybody in the room and said, AFLAC. And everybody started laughing. But then the lights went on, and they realized they had something. And they turned just a little joke of saying AFLAC as a duck into a full wide campaign, because they allowed for the inclusion of all voices to be heard, including the summer students, who some people would say would be of less than everybody else, would be less important. But because they were allowing for the inclusion of all voices, that allowed for the company to blossom. Delta Airlines, very similar. Many years ago, they would only fly around cargo. In 1929, they decided they were going to take the chance to start flying around passengers. And then ultimately, they decided that they were going to start flying around internationally in 1953. They had an employee who came to them and said, I have an idea. I think we need to start flying Delta Airlines to the continent of Africa. They laughed at him. They said it was a bad idea. But he kept on telling them that this was a good idea, and he would draw out the numbers and show them on paper that this might really be a good idea. So they said, you know what? We'll give it a try. So they decided that they were going to fly to Africa. See, today, after deciding that they're going to fly to Africa, they recognize that the number one amount of money that's being made by Delta Airlines is flying around the United States. The number two amount of money being made by Delta Airlines is flying from the United States to Africa. They've decided to do that, and it changed the way they did business because they were open to hearing the voice of somebody else. They were open to hearing the idea that somebody else brought to the table. How do we practice inclusion? You're listening to me and saying, Jeff, this all sounds great, but listen, Jeff, I don't have a giant company. Maybe I'm a one-person, two-person business. Maybe I'm a small mom and pop company. How do I make this work for my company? See, there's certainly different ways that we can allow the idea of inclusion to work. See, one of the things we can look at is celebrating milestones for customers. What does that look like? What does that mean? Bear with me again. This is freezing on me. I do apologize. There we go. So celebrating milestones for customers. For example, if you have an ice cream shop, how about giving away free scoops of ice cream for graduates? If they walk in showing their graduating certificate, you give them a free scoop of ice cream. If you're a barbershop, how about offering free haircuts for the first day of school? How about if you're a coffee shop, you post on a community board people's birthdays or new parents or new retirees? Now, some of you might be saying, Jeff, I hear you, but again, I'm just a small mom and pop business. If I give a scoop of ice cream to every graduate, that's a lot of money. You're absolutely right. But the question is, what is the ROI? What is the return on the investment? Because if you give that scoop of ice cream to that kid who got that A, there's a good chance he's going to come back. There's a good chance that mom and dad are going to come back. There's a good chance when they need that ice cream for that birthday party, you're the person that they call. If you offer free haircuts for the first day of school, yeah, it might cost you a little bit of money, but again, what is the return on your investment? You just received a new customer because you were nice enough to include them on the day that you gave that free haircut. How else can you make a difference? How about donating a percentage of a day's sale to a community cause? If there's a large community of people within your area and there's something that's going on, how about donating some of the money towards them? How about taking just a bit of what's made on that day and making a contribution to what's going on with their cause? You also reflect the community as well. How about posting a sign that says everybody's welcome? If there's a certain language that's spoken in your area, or there's a certain time of year where people are celebrating a certain religion, how about hanging up a sign saying congratulations, saying welcome, saying great celebration? You have an opportunity to be inclusive by just putting up a sign to show people that they belong and that they matter. You can create small traditions as well. Again, as I just talked about, at a restaurant, if you own a restaurant, if you own a store, you could put up a cultural sign celebrating Diwali, celebrating Chinese New Year, celebrating Eid, celebrating those around you in efforts to show them that their presence matters. You can be aware of accessibility as well. Some of our stores, I know that they're small, but if we're able to make maybe a curbside pickup for those who may not be able to get out of the car because of accessibility, if we're able to make some of our lanes wider in some of our stores, it allows that wheelchair or those strollers to go down it. It can be something that's so welcoming for someone who might be in that state. How else do we make people feel welcome? We can look at the bigger customer base. Inclusion really opens up doors for people to feel included. There are people out there, my friends, who don't feel included. And when we allow for inclusivity, when we allow for some of the things I shared, it allows for that person to feel like they matter, to feel like they matter to you, to feel like their business matters. You're not there just to collect a buck. You're there to show them that you really care about their needs. It helps for repeat business. Customers will continue to return to your place when they feel safe and when they feel valued. Businesses known to be inclusive really get talked about in a positive way. They share, as we spoke about earlier, they share the fact that they went to that store and you are the person to go to. You are the person to speak to. You are the one that they want to have their business with because of the way you made them feel. And this is all based on the way you interact with customers. People feel supported. My friends, I want to challenge you this week. I want to challenge you to do something that perhaps you haven't done before. This week, try one of those things that I spoke about. Make your business more welcoming. It really doesn't have to cost much. Like I says, right, this says here, it could be a smile. It could be a sign in the window. It could be an act or a gesture of just being kind. It could put that sign on the door saying, welcome. It could give out that free scoop of ice cream. It can give out a chocolate bar for every kid who gets that A. How far would that type of act do for your business? Again, what is the return on your investment? And the truth is, it's not just about the money. We know that you're a business. And as a business, it really is about making money. If you weren't making money, it really wouldn't be a business. But in the process of making money, you can also build relationships. In the process of making money, you can also make someone feel like they matter. Yes, there's an interaction, there's a transaction, but you have the ability to grow those relationships, to have people feel welcome when they step into your space by being inclusive. So I want to challenge you today to take that opportunity to do something different, do something you haven't done before to really make that impact on other individuals. Understand, my friends, inclusion isn't just about good ethics, it's about good business. Yeah, it's about ethics, but it's also about good business. And being a good business owner is not just about making money. As I said, it's not always just about the transaction when it comes to money. It's the transaction when it comes to relationships. It's the way we make people feel. As I said earlier, when was the last time you walked into a store and that person made you feel so welcome? And when they did, how many times did you want to come back? Did you want to go back and buy more things? Did you want to go back and say hello? Did you want to refer them to other friends? Did you want to bring in your family to buy more things? All because of how that person made you feel. The inclusion isn't just about good ethics. It's about good business. And good business means to be inclusive. Good business means to let other people feel like they matter. To make it feel like regardless of the walk of life they have, that we still accept them, that we still love them as human beings, that we'll still do the best for them, that will give them the best business that we can ever give, like we would do for anyone. Inclusion isn't just good business, isn't just good ethics, it's also about good business. My friends, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak. I'm going to stop my presentation. I do apologize for the technical hiccups as well. I want to have an opportunity to have a conversation. If there's any questions, if there's anything you want to go deeper on, I would love for us to, have that conversation now.
Oh, thank you, Jeff, so much. I appreciate you giving us such an engaging session. I was learning so much during that time. It was amazing. So yeah, if there's people that have questions, there is a Q&A button out at the bottom. You can write your questions there for us, and I can relay them to Jeff, and we can ask him. But maybe to get us started, Jeff, I have a question.
Yeah.
If I'm a patron going into a store, a coffee shop, something like that, and I don't feel like I'm welcomed, that I feel maybe somebody has ignored me. I've had the experience where I maybe walk into a clothing store and somebody looks at me and says, "You're not going to fit into any of the clothes that I have here, so I'm kind of going to ignore you but I could be shopping for my sister, my child, my mother, whatever." And so how do you think that I should interact with them? Should I say something, or should I just walk away and let not spending money in there speak for me? Is it pertinent for us to engage or just to let it go?
That is such a good question. And I have had very similar experiences. When I was getting married many years ago, my wife went to buy a wedding dress. And when she walked in, she received very similar treatment that you just described. I've gone into stores and felt like, they didn't want me there. And the truth is, based on perhaps the attitude that I got, based on, the way I was treated, I've never gone back. I've never spent a dollar there. And at the end of the day, as an individual, we all deserve to be treated with a high level of respect, as everybody else wants that. We deserve that when we walk into a place of business, we walk into a restaurant, we walk into where we work, we walk into a school, we expect to be acknowledged. And when we're not acknowledged, it hurts. When we're not acknowledged, it doesn't feel very good. And so in those situations, a lot of people will see it and be like, you know what, I'm out of here. And they'll never shop there again. And that store owner never knows. The truth is, though, I would like to kind of believe that sometimes we go through different things. There's sometimes I'm walking down the street and I may be thinking about some things and I don't notice people around me. And if you walk by and kind of waved, you think I ignore you. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you walk into a store and that individual, they got things on their mind and they don't mean to be mean to you, but it comes across that way because they're thinking about what's going on in their life. I don't think it hurts to go to that store owner and say, hey, listen, I really want to support your store. I see that you have really great items here, but the truth is I come in here and I don't feel like I'm acknowledged. And I don't know if it's done on purpose. I don't know if it's, if it's not, but I just want to let you know that because the truth is, as a business owner, if enough people feel that way, you'll be out of business very soon. So perhaps it's something that you have something on your mind, perhaps there's something else going on in your life, or perhaps you mean to ignore me. But I'm just letting you know that this is the situation. And, if it's something that you don't want me in your store, gladly I'll leave because there's 2 or 3 or 5 or 20 other stores that I can buy this item at. That allows us to now engage in a conversation. I'm not being confrontational. I'm really just trying to have dialogue. That person might be turned off and say, get out of my store. And that's it. And I'll never go back. Or they may say, you know what? You're absolutely right. I apologize. I'm dealing with some things. I'm dealing with my mom not being well. I'm dealing with my kids. I'm dealing with family. I'm dealing with life. And now that actually engages a bigger conversation. So yeah, I want to encourage that when you do walk into a store and you feel like you're being ignored, you feel like you're not being looked at, you feel like your money doesn't matter, I want to ask you to say something. And again, it's not about being confrontational. It doesn't mean you have to go in there yelling and screaming, but I think we can, as adults, have conversations with individuals to let them know, I'm here to help, I'm here to support, but I don't feel the same support in return. And that can really help to garner a really great conversation and perhaps even build a greater relationship.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that. We do have somebody in the chat. Akela has asked, I'm opening a small bakery in Ridgeway. Being a POC, how do I engage with the community and include them in my culture without having anyone feel excluded?
That's a great question. I would love to come out to your bakery myself. I love baked goods. I'll just tell you that right now. We'll start there. So, that's a great question. If you've ever been to like a major mall, one of these really big malls, you walk by the food court, generally you'll find that there's 1 or 2 restaurants in that food court, and they have the toothpicks out, and they have a tray of some of their meat out. And they put that toothpick in the tray, into the meat, and they hand it to you and say, try, give it a try. And you're like, no, I'm good. No, you gotta try. And once they try just a small piece, ooh, they are hooked. It's that small free giveaway that brings them in. And all of a sudden you're spending $10, $15, $20 because of that one small piece that was given away. When opening up a bakery or any business for that matter that allows for people to taste your food, that may not be a bad idea. Because the truth is, if you have food that is a part of a different culture, that isn't the norm of those who are surrounding the majority of people who live around you, they may have a fear of trying it just because they just don't know what it is. People fear things when they don't know. But when you give them a try, when you hand out that free piece, or if you can afford to do so, you do a gift basket and you bring it to the local police station or local school, or you donate some to the local school, that allows people to try it. They know who you are, they know your business, and that allows for people to start coming in. So I think that could be an idea that can work for you. Again, as a small business, sometimes it can be difficult to give out lots of free things. I get it, I understand it, but we want to be able to balance giving things with the return on the investment. If I'm giving a bunch of things to people who are tourists and they're never going to come back, then it may not make sense. But if I give a bunch of free giveaways to the local hospitals to tell the nurses how grateful I am for them, or I give a bunch of giveaways to the police service or fire service, say, thank you so much. You know what? If you come on back, I'll give you 75 or give you 50% off or 25% off. You may have more people coming in and word starts to travel. So those things may work for your business.
Excellent. Thank you. Michelle has said, as an organization with many diverse employee backgrounds, we try to recognize many DEI dates, but is there a limit to what you should recognize? We don't want to leave anyone out.
That's a great question. And I think that would come down to your employees. I think when you look at, and again, I don't know how many employees that you have that are working there, but I think it really comes down to your employees. One of the questions that you could ask your employees, especially as they're hired, are you someone who does celebrate something and do you want us to help celebrate it? Is there something that maybe we can do within the company for you to feel more included? Some companies do this through surveys, through anonymous surveys, because the truth is, if there's somebody that represents a certain portion they represent a certain portion, and they're the only ones, they may not want to come out and loud and say, yeah, celebrate this holiday. But in a anonymous survey, they may come out and say, yeah, it would be nice if this was acknowledged. And then we put that on the list and we start to acknowledge it. We have maybe a cultural day where people can bring in foods and celebrate their cultures during lunchtime. We give people an opportunity to share a bit about their past and what they've been through or things that are happening in their country. All of this type of stuff allows us to learn more about the individuals. When we learn more about individuals, we learn more about their culture. And ideally, I believe, we learn more about ourselves. So I think that, yeah, when we look at the employees, that helps us now we don't have to say that I celebrate everything, because maybe there's no employees that celebrate a specific holiday that we've been celebrating. But if there's employees that do celebrate certain things, it allows us to be inclusive to include them. So I think asking the employees is always a great way to ensure that we're hitting the mark when it comes to celebrations.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, I noticed that my son goes to the high school here and in town, and we got an email from the school, and one of the things on there was, please let us know if you're celebrating something, as we want to be able to recognize it or honor it or whatever. So I think that's a great way. Ask the question, right? And
Absolutely.
get the feedback. Ashley, did you want to jump in?
Hi. So yeah, I just wanted to respond also in terms of that question of being inclusive. How do you bridge that gap when we're talking about culture? So I would my one thing is always just being upfront and saying like I've never met anybody. I'm eager to learn. So when you put that there, then the person receiving then says, oh, okay, I understand that they may not know anything and I need to start from ground one. Because sometimes we assume, oh, they know about Jamaican culture, or oh, they know about Indigenous culture, but they may not. So once that's kind of cleared up, then you can create a beautiful bridge, a beautiful relationship that would benefit on both sides for that inclusivity. So information, providing cultural teachings.
Nice.
Ashley, that makes so much sense, that really lends into some of the things that I speak about when it comes to parents speaking to their kids about race, when it comes to, senior staff at jobs talking about racial issues that are happening around the world. One of the most powerful things we can say is, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, but we don't stop there. It's not, I don't know. We keep walking. No. I don't know, but we can learn together. But I'm willing to look into this, but I'm willing to learn. And when we do that, as Ashley talked about, collectively, we're learning. And now we could take the steps together to learn about the holiday, what we need to do to celebrate the holiday, what we need to do to understand what a race might be going through or what a culture might be going through when we decide to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. So yeah, Ashley, I love that. That makes so much sense.
Excellent. Thank you. Another question came from Shirley, and she's asking, how do I demonstrate inclusion? Sorry, how do I demonstrate inclusion? What is the best way? So I guess, I know you gave us some examples during your presentation, but like, what is the best way for somebody to really display their inclusivity?
That's a great question, and again, I don't know if we're talking specifically about businesses or just as an individual, but it really comes down to learning. You know, there's lots of this that's going on in this world. There is wars that are happening as we speak. You know, we're so lucky, we're so privileged that we get a chance to have this conversation over Zoom and not worry if there's a bomb that's going to be coming through our house. That's the reality, the lived reality for people in this very moment in other parts of the world. Now, you come across somebody from that part of the world who happens to be here, and you're like, hey, I've been hearing about that war. Tell me what's going on. There's no way that individual can display to you what's been happening, the history of that war. And they shouldn't have to. They're dealing with their own traumas of wondering if their family is okay. It really comes down to us doing our own history, doing our own research rather. We see something on the news, wow, this war's really going on. What's happening over there? This is terrible. Pick up your phone, do some research, find out what's going on. And then we can have a real meaningful conversation with that person who might be from that background or from that culture. And it shows that person that you have been doing your research. It's not one of those things like, hey, tell me what's going on. It's like, no. I've been reading up on what's going on. I'm just curious, you know, and now you're having a meaningful conversation. So when we're trying to broaden our own inclusion, it allows us to really be able to adapt to or identify what someone else might be going through. But again, through research that we do, through our own learning, and then bringing on those conversations. It's not for that person to explain what's going on. It's for us to do research and then further those conversations with that individual.
No, I really like that idea. Yeah, for sure. So we have another question that came in. It says, Jeff, can you speak to coping with what feels like a very divided and charged environment? Anti-South Asian hate seems to be on a relentless rise, and personally, I find it exhausting. Although I am not a South Asian, this discrimination seems very in my face as a brown male.
That's a great question. It's a great question. You know, sometimes it feels like we take 2 steps forward and 48 steps back. You know, sometimes it feels so exhausting, especially when a lot of the information we get is from our neighbors south of us. It could be difficult. It could be daunting. But I really want to encourage my friend who said that and anybody else who's struggling in this way. I want to encourage you to continue to be your authentic self, meaning I want you to continue to be that person who does ask questions, continue to be that voice when nobody else is speaking. Because the truth is, when everybody else turns their back on a certain group or culture, it takes you to show that what they're doing isn't cool, what they're doing isn't right. It's an individual basis, but as individuals, when we make that decision, it allows us to collectively move forward. Again, we're in a space where they talk about illegal aliens. And when we talk about illegal aliens, we hear that term quite a bit when you're watching the news. Again, a lot of the things that are coming from our neighbors to the south. When we make up terms like that, there's now a divide. And when we divide ourselves from somebody else, it's an us versus them. And when we say an us versus them, we are no longer seeing that individual. We're seeing a group of people who we just don't want here. Illegal aliens, or whatever the term could be used. And again, derogatory terms, very similar. That person is this and that. And we separate ourselves. So that person is no longer another mother and father who wants their best for their children like I do. That person is no longer someone who wants a great education that I do. It's no longer a person that, you know, really wants the best out of life like me. It's just another fill in the blank. So when we become exhausted, because it is very exhausting, in trying to fight this fight, understand there are people that will fight with you. I'm fighting with you. I know Jen's fighting with you. Ashley's fighting with you. There are people here collectively who are fighting this fight with you. It's about looking for those people, uniting. And sometimes it's like, man, I'm tired. Jen, can you get this one? Because I'm tired. And then the next one, I got the next fight. You get this fight, I got the next fight. It is constantly working together because I believe that's the only way we're going to fight through this thing. As difficult as it is, and sometimes it feels like we take so many steps back, I truly believe, I have to believe that we're making lots of progress moving forward. Because I have children who live in my house who want to see a better tomorrow. I know at some point in time I'll have grandchildren who I want to see a world where they don't have to worry about microaggressions. They don't have to worry about if they have a cultural sounding name, if it's going to stop them from getting a job. I want them to live in a world where they can just live and just enjoy life like everybody else. So as tired as you are, my friend, as tired as I am, collectively, let's look out for each other. Let's fight together. They say that you can go further by yourself, but you can go you can go faster by yourself, but you go further together. We need to team up and be together so we can go further for the generation to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to say that Michelle at Airbus got a shout out saying that they know people that work there and they feel like they admire that company and they have some good highlights there and celebrations. So they wanted to give them a shout out.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then, so here's another question. How do you respond to people who say Christian holidays are celebrated? Why not other cultures or religious cultures?
Yeah, when we look at the Christian holidays, that really comes down to the way that this country was initially established in terms of those who had came and, ideally claimed the lands from the indigenous folks who were here before and what they brought with them. One of those things they brought with them was a Christian religion, was ideally the holidays. And so that became ingrained into the system that we live in. And then this is why, you automatically have Christmas off or Easter off. But someone who celebrates Chinese New Year will have to ask for that off. And so ideally, based on the way the culture, the whole thing was created and the way it's been baked in, so to speak, this is why you'll find that certain holidays you'll get off and certain other ones you won't. But if you are someone who does celebrate another holiday that's not seen as a typical holiday, I think that you deserve to have that off. Of course, it comes down to the conversation that you have with the place that you work, but ideally it becomes a human rights issue in terms of you being able to get that holiday off. So I'm not sure if there's a situation where you're having trouble in terms of getting that time frame off, but it really could become a human rights issue in regards to ensuring that you get that holiday off. Not everyone is going to be Christian. Not everyone's going to want to or need Christmas off. Some people need a holiday off that reflects closer to their culture, which is not a typical stat holiday in Canada. But again, it sounds like, if that's the case, perhaps it becomes a human rights issue. Ashley, you may want to add to that.
Yeah, I think it lends closely to what she was going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just have one more final question I wanted to ask. But I was wondering if you can speak on any suggestions you might have for a small business owner in terms of adopting a DEI policy for hiring. So let's say we have two candidates. They have the same credentials. How would you navigate making that choice if there is a factor of race or gender or anything like that that seems to be at play there? How would you suggest or advise that small business owner to navigate making a decision between those two candidates?
That is a great question. In Canada, we've had to create equity measures. And equity measures have been created to give people an opportunity who may not have had opportunity before. So, for example, if we talk about equity versus equality, so I have a team of kids who play baseball, and every kid on that team needs baseball cleats. So I go out and I buy every kid on that team size 7 baseball cleats. That's equal. They all get size 7 shoes. I don't care if it doesn't fit you. You put those on. That you got size 7 shoes. Everyone has the same thing. That's equal. But we all know that there's a kid that wears size 6. There's another kid that wears size 8. And so those kids that wear size 7, they're going to do well. They're going to score. They're going to do everything they can. But those kids who are wearing shoes that don't fit are going to struggle. That's being equal. When we're talking about equity, equity is buying shoes for every kid on that team, buying shoes that actually fit. So everybody has a fair opportunity and fair chance. When we're talking about hiring practices and specifically putting equity measures in place, there are times that because of the inequality that has taken place in our country, specifically with our indigenous folks, with some people in the Black community, Latin community, etc. There are people who haven't had a fair shake, fair opportunity based on rules and laws in the past. So because of those equity measures, there are times that you'll have police services saying, we're looking to hire more women this time. We're looking to hire more Black officers this time, because in the past, that hasn't been fair. So when hiring two people as a small business, or as a small business, when you're looking at two candidates, of course, you always want to make sure that someone is qualified. That never goes out the window. The first thing you want to look at is, are the people qualified? If the people are qualified, as a small business, you may want to sit down and ask further questions. You may want to talk about what's how's your education? How is school? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? It gets you to know that individual a little bit more. At the end of the day, it's not always about hiring someone because they're a different skin color or the same color. It's about hiring someone, number one, who is qualified for the job, and of the two, if they both come in with the same qualifications, then potentially considering, if I'm looking at an equity standpoint, is there someone who, if they took this job, I would give them a better up on life? Maybe somebody, their parents are doing well financially. Maybe the other person is really struggling and this job will help them to get that college or university education that they truly need. So if we're talking about two people that are both equally qualified, then it may come down to looking at other factors. But if you make the decision to hire somebody who is from a marginalized community, you are covered under the Ontario human rights, from the Canadian human rights, for using those equity measures to bring in that individual based on the differences and the setbacks that the culture may have had on them.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Well, it's 1:03, so I think we've reached the end of our session. This has been amazing. I want to thank you again. It's been amazing, engaging. It's been so awesome to have you a part of this webinar series that we're doing. Just for everyone's sake, Jeff will be a part of our in-person session coming up on October 30th. So your registration for today's event gets you the next webinar with Chris McQueen, the CAO of the town of Fort Erie. It also gets you access to the in-person session. So we hope to see everyone there. Tell your friends, they can still register. They will get access to both webinars, the video, and so it'll be 100% worth their time and money to register with us to participate. Just also want to let you know that we had several sponsors of our event, and I want to say thank you to them. I'm going to share my screen real quick here so you can get a visual on that. So we had the South Niagara Chamber of Commerce has supported this event. They are hosting this webinar today. We have the United Way of Niagara. We have the Niagara Community Foundations. The Niagara Region was a big supporter and sponsor of this event. The Fort Erie Multicultural Center, Meridian Credit Union, Little Red Coffee will be supporting us in our in-person event to supply all the goodies and the coffee for the day. And of course, the town of Fort Erie is a supporter of this event as well. So I wanted to make sure they got a shout out to let them know that we appreciate that. Without their support, we wouldn't have been able to start this series and get it going. So we really thank you a lot for that support. Yeah, so I again, thank you everyone for coming. We appreciate it. I know some people have jumped off, but I just wanted to say, big thank you, and tell your friends. Ashley?
One other thing I just wanted to mention is, Jen, can you explain what that image is in the background?
Oh, yes. So that is our sort of our badge of honor, I guess. We have the Safe Space IDEA, the Inclusive, Diverse, Equitable, and Ally sticker. So as you go through this series and participate and get to the end and put in a little bit of work for it with us, we're going to be giving out that sticker that you can use for your business. If you want to put it on your windows physically, it'll let people know that this is a safe space for them to be and to shop at or to access. And we can also give you access to the logo for your online websites and whatnot. So we will be providing that to everyone after the in-person session. in October. So yeah, we look forward to that as well. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate you coming out today. Again, thank you, Jeff and the Chamber for hosting. And we hope to see you guys all back on October 2nd for the second webinar. Thanks,
Alrighty,
everyone.
have a good day.